Hey guys, this is Crap Hunter. Welcome back to World of Tanks. Woo! And in today's episode, we're going to be looking and reviewing the Comet tank. Yes, the Tier 7 British, famous Tier 7 tank in World of Tanks. It has got a big fan base, as I have heard. But I am going to have to break some of your bubbles if you are hoping. I am the part of the crowd that doesn't like this tank very much. Not like, oh, it's a shit tank, I hate it, but I just can't seem to find that enjoyment factor, if you will, that many Comet players have. So if you are a Comet player, my apologies if you think I'm doing this wrong. You obviously know more about this vehicle / like this vehicle's style better than I. But no, I'm not a big fan of this thing. But that said, this thing isn't a bad tank. I've had some pretty damn good games in it regardless. And in this review, you'll see why. So without further ado, let's get started. So, for hit points, what do you have? Well, you have 1,150 hit points, which, for a Tier 7 tank, is good, pretty good. You can definitely take a hell of a lot more shots than the Cromwell, so that is somewhat better. Let's have a little look at your Tier 7 compatriots, because now you actually have to face off against more of these things. The Chinese finally have some medium tanks to go for. Now, I don't own this vehicle, but I have researched it. This vehicle has 1,050 hit points when it has its top turret, so you're better than that by 100. Nothing for France, because they only have light scouts at that point. As for Germany, not very good. Well, not good for you, as the Panther tank automatically beats you on its stock basis, but when fully upgraded, this thing has 1,300. The VK 3002 DB is pretty much the same as you, only it gets slightly more. I think 1,250, I think, 1,250 to an extent, so it's better than you by 100. Going down the list towards the Americana. Let's have a look-see. The T20, she would have, yeah, I think 1,100 hit points. So you're better than the T20 by about 50 hit points. So generally speaking, it's the difference between a low and a high roll. So you are better, but it's not by much. The A34, I believe, has 1,150 hit points, and the T43 has the same, pretty much the same, or just under you. Finally, we have the Chiri. Oops, wrong one. Is it Chiri? Yes, the Chiri at Tier 7, which pretty much has the same, and is like, it gets 100 hit points more. Yeah, actually doesn't even get an upgradable turret. No, it doesn't, so it has the same amount of hit points as you. So, while you're not, like, on the top dominating, you're not really that different to any other people, which, to an extent, not, it makes you pretty much the average Joe average tank, for that matter. Now, on to weight and engine power. You are a pretty light tank, being at 33.15 tons, and your total tonnage limit is 34. This, in combination with your 650 horsepower engine, it gives you a pretty decent 51.5 kilometers per hour. Which is not bad, but the downside, of course, to this is you get a very poor traverse speed of 36. Yeah, this thing unfortunately doesn't follow in the footsteps of the Cromwell tank, which probably to you Cromwell drivers out there, bit of a big shame that after all that awesomeness of mobility, flanking, and pure adrenaline speed, you're just having to go in a slightly slower vehicle. But that said, it's not bad. Like, as long as you take care not to go completely in the open and get outflanked a lot, you should be okay in that regard. Now, onto armor. As a British tanker, I imagine you've probably gotten used to the fact that you're never really going to have that decent amount of armor in comparison to, say, the Germans or the Russian tanks. While this vehicle is better armored than the Cromwell, it's not by much. 76 to the front, 43 to the sides, 32 to the rear, all of which are flat. In regards, though, there are some parts of this tank that are well armored, which that mainly focus around the turret. The turret front is 111, 63 armor to the side, and 57 to the rear. And the turret mantler is surprisingly bouncy, I've found in combat. How bouncy? Well, let's have a look in Tank Inspector to find out. So here we are on Tank Inspector. Here is the Comet, and here are the Comet's armor values. Now, as the Comet has absolutely no angling capabilities, apart from save a very lucky side shot, or shots that will bounce miraculously off the side of the hull, I'm going to kind of just focus on one section in particular, which is the turret of this vehicle, as this will probably be the only section of armor which will protect you from any kind of shots. This is pretty much the only section of the vehicle now that you can actually rely on to provide you with protection, which is the turret front. As it says on the stats, 111, and because it is as flat as the rest of the hull armor, there is little to no improvement over that when it comes to engaging. I mean, when you're cresting over the hill, you might get a few more, but probably not enough if you take shots to the sides. So what you really will need to rely on when it comes to hull down engagements is this strip of armor here, the 110mm of spaced armor in your gun mantlet, as when combined with the 111mm of frontal armor, you'll find that you're getting yourself over 200mm of defensive armor, which you can utilize against tier 8 tanks. Some parts of the turret are pretty badly armored, but the outer rim of the turrets, which if as long as you can ensure that goes in, you'll have a high chance of being able to potentially bounce tier 8 and potentially tier 9 shots if you're fortunate enough. So this is pretty much the best part of this thing, which is why on a number of occasions I've actually been able to bounce IS-3 shots just by hulling down and spotting and shooting these targets, which, considering you can't do much else in some games, that'll be perfect for what you need. Going down a little bit to the section strip of spaced armor, you'll have actually a bit on the top as well, which, while it's not as powerful as the 110 here, at least from a frontal angle, you still get relatively the same amount of results when it comes to defending against your armor. But apart from that, I'm really not sure as to what else you could actually use to defend yourself. The only other weak points I would say on this vehicle is this section on your side of your turret, which in the game looks like such. Smallish target, but it actually has the rear armor values. So just to let you know on that one. But yeah, with regards to the with armor on this vehicle, like the Cromwell, there is little to no effective armor for this. So when you're in engagements, be sure to either find a place to hide, or if you are going for it, make sure that you can kill your target before he has a chance to react. Now, onto view range and signal range. And with the Comet, she actually gets a pretty decent combination of 380 of view range and 700 signal range. Ironically enough, I've actually gained more patrol duties in this vehicle than high calibers. So, thanks to this. So, let's have a little look to see how you fare in comparison to your counterparts. Let's start up the top. The T34-1. For its view range, it isn't as good, being at 370, but it does absolutely trounce you at 750. So, unfortunately, while you can't be seen from while it has to get closer to see you, as soon as it does see you, it reports your position very quickly. Going on to Germany, because the French do not have tier 7 medium tanks, Germany actually has the two German medium tanks at tier 7 actually have the same upgrades. The Panther Schmeltern has 380 view range, and the Fug 12 gives it 710 signal range. So it's basically on par and slightly better than you. And the same one goes for the VK 3002 DB. Has the same turret upgrade, which gives it 380 view range, and the Fug 12, which gets it 710 signal range. So Germany beats you only slightly. Going on to America, you have the T20, of which its turret is actually much better than you when it's upgraded, because it gets it 390 meters view range, which is a pretty good. It's a very good view range for a tier 7 medium tank. However, it does get cut down to size with its tier 9 radio, which has 615 meters range. So that's where the 6 came in. So not so great for for signal range, but absolutely fantastic for view range. Now, this is the second time we've got an entourage of Russian tanks, so be prepared. The A34 with its upgraded turret will have 370 view range with an absolute garbage 525 signal range from its 9RM tier 8 radio. The same is pretty much, it's pretty much the same for the T43, having 370 view range and 525 signal range for the T43. However, there is a bit of a difference when you finally get to the KV13. The KV13 actually has worse view range, being 360, but it does get a much better radio, being 625 for the Radio 12RT. And finally, the Japanese with their Chiwi. With their upgraded turret, they receive 370 view range, so not as good as you, but like the Chinese, they do absolutely whomp you by getting a tier 10 radio. So yeah, definitely like the Chinese. Can't see you as well, but can certainly tell everyone else about it. So with regards to view range and signal range, while the Comet doesn't really have any kind of major advantage over many of the other tanks, you do get a fairly decent amount, which puts you better than average to a degree. Now, on to my favourite part of any review, the gun. Though in this one, I fear some of you may like it, some of you may not like what I'm about to say. So, before I go on, my experiences. Now, to help prove my case, let's harken back to me driving the Cromwell tank. Well, no, not me buying the Cromwell, driving it. And I was excited, you know. I mean, I wasn't the best Cromwell driver in the world, but I did my fair share and did well. I got the high velocity gun. I was really happy. I got all the sort of stuff. I finally got the Comet, so I finally had researched it, and I had this gun to start with. 75mm high velocity. 15.38 rounds a minute, 145 pen, 135 damage, 0.34 and a 2.3 second aiming time. For a stock gun, this was fun. I liked this gun. It was pretty good for a stock gun. And so I grinded. I got the tracks, I got the turret, and then I got this. This is a pretty piss poor example of a top gun. This gun only has a marginally better penetration, marginally better damage. No changes to the accuracy, no changes to the aiming time. Same rate of fire. For some reason they mistyped something and only gave it 76.2. No, if it says 77, you make it 77, but that's just a grammar thing. What my real beef with this gun is the fact that it's just shit for a top gun, you know? I feel ripped off with this gun, you know? And considering that the Centurion is over 100,000 experience points to research, this gun makes the grind terrible. Absolutely terrible. But then again, trying to look at it from an objective perspective, or at least better than trying to look at it from a positive perspective, this gun, when at close ranges, will do the job on a flank. And that probably is what separates myself from many of the other Comet players, because probably you're more in tune with the flanking, the shooting at the tracks, you know, maybe not going for the kill shot, but maybe trying to track it so that your friend who does have the penetration can do it. But I find that that's like, well, okay, I can see where you're coming from, but I also can't really blame the people who stock up on premium shells. So I would say that this gun is a piss poor excuse for a top gun, and perhaps a buff would be necessary before I would look at it on a positive light. This for me is what kills the tank for me. This is what makes me sort of say it's alright, but, you know, sort of deal. Now on to crew skills and equipment, and starting at equipment, I don't even think I need to recommend anything. This is just what you have to have in order to be successful with this vehicle. Vents, rammer, vertical stabilizer, Mark 1. Now, the downside of the vertical stabilizer is that it is the most expensive of all three options, being at 500,000 credits. Or perhaps 600,000, I'm not entirely sure. I think it's 500,000. Yeah, 500,000 credits. So, not cheap, but it does give you 20% accuracy during movement and turret rotation. And as you are a fast-ish medium tank, this will be crucial when firing on the move. Now, for your crew skills. Your commander, well, you should know the drill by now. Sixth sense, best way to identify whether you've been spotted by the enemy. For your gunner, as this vehicle is very much on the move sort of thing, Snapshot would very much help you take care of shooting whilst moving, and it also works in tandem with the vertical stabilizer, so that's really handy. But then when you hit this skill to 100%, get another skill, train it to 40, and then drop it for the Deadeye perk. This basically allows you to grab this perk without having to suffer a penalty for dropping the skill. As for your driver, I think two skills are the most important here. Clutch braking should be a #1, as your not so good turning traverse can affect you and can pretty much screw you over in the battlefield. So getting that to 100% first is pretty much a must. After which, off-road driving will probably be a good choice as well, as it increases your capabilities of maneuverability. Now, radio operator-wise, I think I gave him the wrong skill, but gave up afterwards. Probably having extending of your signal range rather than having your spotting distance increased would be a better call, as then you can actually potentially match the same level of signal range that, say, the T34-1 has or the Japanese Chiri has. For your loader, well, just give him a simple skill of repairs or firefighting or camo or whatever kind of skill can get to 100. Repairs, pretty much. Then afterwards, you want to try and swap it for Adrenaline Rush. This basically accelerates the gun loading if your vehicle has less than 10% of its hit points left. As then that way, in the last few vital moments of a game, you may be able to save yourself and that game. So that's the talking side of this review done. Let's see how she fares in combat with a few matches. So here we are for our first replay of the video. I am in the Comet joined by Bidden War and Silent Daimyo. We are on a standard match on the Cliff map, the 9.2 version as well. So generally speaking, you don't often get tier 7 matches, which is quite nice for the Comet. Like, if you're lucky, you might get some, but during my grind of this vehicle, I had more tier 8 matches than tier 7, which was quite frustrating to play in. But this one was quite a nice, refreshing change. And what we instantly noticed about this game was the fact that there was little to no people watching the 1-2 line on this map, which normally would cause, like, at least one of us to sort of have to go back, but on this occasion we thought, you know what, screw it. If they do flank, we will just deal with it at the time. So Bidden War and I decide to flank around to get to the 9-0 line to see if we can either scout the enemy force approaching or at points hold them off as much as we can, as most of our heavy tanks are still just about getting out of our base sector. Oh yeah, and that artillery, he's going to be around for a long time in this game. So then, going around the corner, we find the mother lode of all forces, as the first shot obviously bounces off the stock T-29's hull armor, but the second shot does find its way home, and Bidden War decides to charge in, sacrificing himself to try and hold off the enemy team whilst our heavies move into position. So one lucky shot gets into the side of the Black Prince's turret, second shot, nope. Third shot, trying to find a weak point, nope. And I kind of tunnel visioned a bit on this tank. What I really probably should have done is focused a little bit more on the T-29 as he goes round to finish off Bidden War. But that said, Bidden War's sacrifice was not in vain, as our heavies have finally arrived to carry on the good fight. The second shot, this shot goes into the Jagdpanther, which was a lucky shot indeed, and the stock T-29 decides to have a slugfest with my tank. However, I think he must have been a new T-29 driver, because he angled himself perfectly for my shells to do some damage. So at this point, after doing a fair amount of damage to the T-29, the Black Prince comes along to say hello, and that's when I take my first shot of damage. So in retribution, I knock his treads out, which completely knackers the Black Prince's capabilities to engage. Now I will just zoom out and pause for a second, because that artillery just knocked out the T1 Heavy, which I hadn't realized at the time, but he was right behind me. I think the T1 Heavy actually soaked up all of the damage that shell would have hit, because if he hadn't, I would have also been blasted by that by the enemy artillery as well. So I am very lucky to have taken no damage, but unfortunately he was very unlucky to have taken some damage. So bad luck for him, amazing amount of luck for me. Anyway, getting back into the game, I throw another cheeky shot in the direction of the T-29, but IS decides to knock him out as well. And it comes at this point where it gets very kind of chaotic to a point, so I'll try my best to talk and to describe. So the enemy decides to renew their force, and I get a lucky shot into the side, or to the top turret of the Chinook, which is when Bidden War is sending me advice saying, come on Crap Hunter, go for that Tiger P, ignore the Jagd Panther and Su-100, they can't shoot you yet, just go for the Tiger P. But having bounced off something, which I thought was the Su-100, I thought it was the Su-100 firing. And it was at this point, you know, artillery was landing right next to me, and it was at this point everything became flustered. So I started zooming in, I kept going forwards, trying to see if I can get a shot in on the Tiger P, looking around to my right, is the Tiger, tell the Tiger see me, oh shit, there's a Jagd Panther, fire, lucky clutch shot, move up, spot the enemy Tiger P, fire shot, miss, bounces, takes an ammo rack, which luckily doesn't set me on fire, but like, kills me instantly. Daimyo and his Tiger P move up, I try and go for the Polar, that fails, and so now I'm just desperate to try and knock out the Tiger P. So the next shot comes in, and I get another high damage roll from the Tiger P, though luckily Daimyo is able to knock out the enemy tank, and then T-29 tries to go for Daimyo, and the second shot luckily knocks out and finishes off the T-29 at stock. So after that debacle, artillery still absolutely craving to get those kills on our heavy tanks, throws another shell which tracks Daimyo. And unfortunately by this point our entire midsection completely kills off our forces and everything, which is not too good. For some reason that shot didn't connect home, which is really weird. But that said, we then had to switch around to try and take care of the enemy M6. I throw a clutch shot in his direction, but unluckily it hits. Second shot though, not so much. And it was by this point we were kind of debating whether I should go to try and knock out artillery, as all of the enemy's heavies are pretty much over here, save for like the IS over that section. So it was by this point that we're like, right, okay, Daimyo is going to get completely hammered by artillery, and I'm trying to think, well, try and support him as much, get a lucky bounce, and I withdraw luckily a little bit. Well, at this point I think, right, no, I have to go and take care of artillery. So whilst we're trying to make our way towards, unfortunately the scumbag does kill my second platoon mate, so now I'm on my own platoon-wise in the game. So tense moments it be now, because we weren't too sure whether the IS tank was actually going to do his job, but surprisingly he did pull through and everything. And our E25, who very helpfully did nothing that section, just then starts to move in to try and help out our remaining teams. When I finally spot the enemy artillery, taking my time, moving slightly forward, take your time, take your time, take your time, bang! High damage roll for the win, thank you very much. So after that absolute crazy clusterfuck scenario, now we're on the last foot of the game. However, the enemy does have an IS, which I believed was... Oh yes, they had a full health Centurion mill with potential one-shot if the IS got a high damage roll, enemy IS. So, very tense moment at that point. For some reason, I was thinking when I was approaching that the enemy tanks were going to try and move up along the new road to potentially get some firing shots into the base in case we tried to come down this road or this pathway. So I decided to take the cautious route. By that point, unfortunately, our Hummel does perish, and the IS then moves out of spotting range. But then the Centurion mill, for some reason, I don't know why, decides to throw his life away by dashing to the cap. By which point, my first shell goes completely over the top. I spot the IS tank. I throw a shot, clutching it as he starts looking at me. And the Centurion mill, I don't know why he did this, but he pretty much sacrificed himself. Next shot luckily connects, and the E25 decides to niche the kill. So this game is pretty much over, and just trying to find a better angle, and the IS tank sort of what looks to be like he's going to start setting up into a defensive position, by which point, as I'm turning around to get into a better angle, he decides to do the exact same thing that the Studer Emil just did, and decides to sacrifice himself by going into the open, which by this point I fire one shot, and the IS steals the last kill, ending the game. So here we are, victory for us. Yes, it was an awesome match. We actually got a lot out of it as well. 48,000 credits and 2,392 experience. I don't believe that was doubled. I think that was actually the base experience I got. That's like the 2 times, obviously I had a premium, but that was the experience I got out of that, which is pretty freaking awesome. As for awards, we got a Mastery Badge First Class. My apologies for having to move the screen up and down a bit, but unfortunately my blasted editor software likes to cut video when there's little to no frames, so my apologies for that. But going to the team scores, I didn't score as much as the E25. Well done to him for doing so. Kudos to that man. He did nearly over 3k damage, but I did 2,398 with that gun. So I am impressed. I'm impressed with that gun at least. And I obviously got 4 kills, and I got a crap ton of base experience as well. So definitely happy with that one. I did a fair amount of spotting as well. So all in all, a very good game from the Comet. And we're back. I'm afraid I couldn't really find any capabilities to utilize replays in older World of Tanks versions, so we're going to have to do a live play for the second video, which I hope you guys don't mind. Right, as we are in a Tier 8 matchup as well, this should hopefully prove how she is in Tier 8 games. So we're pretty much mid-tier. We're on standard map on Live Oaks, which is a nice map. I do enjoy this map. Though, in all honesty, I kind of prefer it now as a heavy, as the town engagement, whilst it can, doesn't last too long, I always find I enjoy it a lot more when backed up in a team. I found I can work in the town quite well. The Riverside, of course, I've done this maneuver for like yonks, so I know what I'm doing when it comes to. Well, I hope I know what I'm doing. Sounding very confident there, Crab Hunter, especially just before a game. Yeah, the Comet with regards to hulling down, as I was saying earlier in the armor section, this thing has a very good. Oh, that's helpful. This thing has a very good gun depression, as you can see. So, if you want to just poke along and spot for stuff, like if you prefer to spot your targets, like if you're in this kind of matchmaking a fair amount, you're like, right, I don't really want to commit too much to a fight, but at the same time I do want to help my team, then that's also quite helpful. Okay, apparently no one's... Oh, no, someone was there. Right, enemy T-32, and I didn't take any damage. That's a miracle. Oh, look at that, T-34-1. Right, let's have a look-see. IS-6 couldn't hope in hell to penetrate him from the front. T-34-1 is going to try and poke. Let's see if we can surprise him a little. Nope. SU-122-44 is engaging. Can we get away with it? Not really a clear shot, and the SU-122-44 is blocking quite a bit now, so I haven't really got much of a hope in damaging. T-32 completely covering that approach, so yeah, that's pretty much impossible. T-150 has a good idea. Oh, actually, what's that over there? That's the IS-6. Right, let's move up. And a Jagdpanther 2. Oh, shit. Right. No, sod that. Right, swing round right side. Or not. Right, good idea. It actually didn't go that side. Okay, so there's definitely campers over there. But yeah, they're pushing this section now. T-34-1. Right, I haven't... First bit of damage today. Jagdpanther going YOLO and is paying the price. What? Oh, he killed himself before the guy got there. Hey, I got him. Pulling back. And you can see that. Ah, bollocks. Oh, that's just not handy. Okay, so you can see I ricocheted a shot from the outer shot from the T-32, but unfortunately, because I've now fixed my ammo, my gun is even worse than it was before. Okay, so let's back off completely now. Yeah, this fight is not looking very good. We are winning in the north, but unfortunately, that's the only bit of this. Oh, I tracked him. Brilliant. Use that to my advantage. Nope, he uses a repair kit. I love how the AT-15 on our team isn't actually paying attention to... Or they are actually paying attention to it, so in fairness, they are doing something about it. The gun has a relatively decent rate of fire. Not as good as the Sherman, Easy 8 Sherman, but then again, with the rammer and probably 100% crew and some, I'm pretty sure... Right, yeah, let's pull back from here. Oh, no, I'm screwed. Yeah, I'm screwed. Yeah, I'm dead. Well, unfortunately, I am down. Sadly, our game... That said, though, I did a fairly decent game out of that one, considering the circumstances. Our heavies took their bloody time, though. But, Oh. Yeah, our heavies have taken quite a long time to punch a hole and knock out... Oh, that said, they did knock out a number of Tier 6 and Tier 8s. But I don't... Unfortunately, I fear we may not have won this one. That SU-152 is an idiot, because he's using the wrong gun. Is that a mark of... Yeah, I'm surprised he's got that from this thing. It's the wrong gun, in all honesty. He should have been using the derp gun, because then he probably would have been able to get a lot more damage done. But regardless, we might win this one, but we'd be very lucky if we did. So what I'll do now is I'll take you now to the results screen of this game. So that actually was a draw, which is quite a rare occurrence for me in that... didn't do too well in that game. Like, score-wise, we came about half... Actually, we came onto the higher tops. I did 1,000 damage, which is pretty good. Not as much as the others, but that said, not too bad either with the gun that I've got. Did actually a 500 spotting damage. As I said, this thing can just spot things very well. I don't know why. Did 5 module damages, which is pretty awesome. 2 of which were just on the tracks of the T34-2. 2 of which were also on one of the ammo rack as well, on the Jagdpanther 2. So if I was lucky, I could have ammo racked him. Then the last one was on the driver of the T34-1. As I said, 1,000 damage and 2 kills. For experience, I got a fairly decent amount of experience. Pretty actually high on the team, which is pretty decent as well. So not all in all, an alright game. Could have done better, but considering the circumstances, I think I did my best in that game. So, summary time. Well, I can't say that this vehicle is a bad vehicle. I can certainly say that this vehicle is one that I think if I ever looked back on, I think I'd only say, this vehicle was good, but the gun let it down. Like, I mean, that said, for me, though, it could be completely different for you. You may have had fantastic games. Maybe you're grinding this vehicle right now, you've got this gun, and all you're doing is spending a lot of time getting to that Centurion, but you're having a fun time doing it. Well, if that's the case, brilliant, because you've clearly discovered something I haven't. Because for me, grinding that 100k experience was horrible. Absolutely horrible. And I don't know, I just feel ripped off by that gun. Like, the gun on its own does the job, but it's just, I'd expect that from a stock gun, you know? So, whether or not you agree, I think we can all agree on the fact that this thing, while it's certainly got its limitations when it comes to gun firepower, it still is a very good tank as a medium. In wolf packs, this thing is brilliant. On its own, it can deal a fairly decent amount of damage, and when you do get those games where the gun actually helps you out, it really does help you out. It's not a bad tank in any regard, except for the fact that the gun rips you off. That's the best way I can look at it, you know. So if you're having a better experience than I with this gun, feel free to put in the comment section down below, and hopefully maybe if I ever do have the desire to go back to this thing, maybe I could try what you've done. And that's about it for this review, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this kind of content, do feel free to let me know in the comment section down below by either clicking on the like button or by subscribing to the channel. if you yourself are a YouTuber, a World of Tanks player, or a World of Tanks player who does YouTube. Feel free to let me know if there's anything I can do to improve my commentary, my video style, how I do my videos, anything like that at all. Feel free to let me know, and I'll do what I can to mold it and make it into a more awesome episode. Thank you very much for watching this, guys, and this is Crap Hunter signing out, and I'll catch you next time.